I have done yoga before, on and off, over the years. So I was very familiar with yoga, but she encouraged me to practice yoga, maybe a bit more intensely, to help with the rehabilitation. Now, why yoga? So I was struggling with balance. I was struggling with coordination, and I couldn't walk straight. So I didn't have any sense of depth perception. Also, with my hearing, I also struggled to with crowds and specific environments, and that's when I started to develop a greater appreciation for our senses and what the most amazing things that we are able to do with our bodies. And that's when I decided to try yoga. So I'm using the word yoga as it's commonly understood, and that is the yoga postures. So the asana, and that's what I essentially focused on. Sorry, I'm busy typing here as I'm talking because I want to share something. And then after practicing yoga and enjoying it so much, I started doing it at gym. So I bought a mat and I decided to go to gym because I was only practicing at home to YouTube videos, as I've been doing for a number of years, even before then. And I became a lot more familiar with the poses and the names of the poses and the sequencing. And I decided, okay, well, let me just do it at the gym, because I used to listen to the cues through maybe earphones, and I could practice it. And then for a few times over the few months, various people approached me at yoga and asked me, approached me while I was doing yoga and asked me, are you a yoga teacher? So I thought, no, I'm not. And then the second person asked me, and the third person asked me, and this wonderful lady a few years ago, I was at the gym. The gym was very full. And at this point in time, I was becoming quite proficient at it. That I didn't need verbal cues. I didn't need to watch videos. I can just follow the flow and create a flow as I go along. Nothing planned. I just go exactly where my body takes me. And I think I was practicing for about, I think my session was about 40 or so minutes. And as I was packing up in this busy gym, getting into a state of mind, she stopped me and she told me, I've been sitting because there was a coffee shop that was just to my left. And she said, I'm done with my workout. I just sat down for a cup of coffee, and then I saw you, and I was watching you the entire time doing your yoga. And I just enjoyed watching you. Now, to be honest with you, I don't do yoga as a show off. To be frankly honest, I don't do it because I want to show people I can do yoga or yoga asana, yoga poses. I do it because it was very therapeutic for me. It was extremely therapeutic for me. It helped to speed up my rehabilitation. It helped me to deal with depth perception. It helped me to deal with balancing and coordination. So it holds a very, very special place in my heart, because it really helped with the rehabilitation. But there was a bit of an acknowledgement from a stranger, and she told me, I am a practicing attorney. I've been practicing for many years, and I just decided I had a change in my life. I had a life-changing event, and I decided to start up this business. And her business is it's a catering type of business, and she owns a few delis in Johannesburg. She was in Cape Town on holiday, and I said, "You went from an attorney to that?" She says, "Yes." And would you believe it? I'm enjoying my life. I'm loving my life. It's quite an adjustment. I'm sure there's many people out there that have similar stories. And she told me, but I've done yoga before, but I just really enjoyed watching you, because from her perspective, she told me she could see there was passion there. And I appreciated her acknowledgement. These days, I acknowledge it and I thank them for it. But I always tell myself inside, and I've told a few people this, I have to remind myself that those acknowledgements, all those compliments, should not feed my ego. And I'll get to the topic of ego. So, where was I? And then I decided, oh, well, since so many people have been asking me, let me just give it a go. So I decided to take up, to approach a yoga training academy. And I then went to learn yoga. And it was quite intense. It was done all in my part-time in the evenings, over weekends. And it was very, very intense. And they were very, very strict, as they should be. But I learned so much, and I'm forever grateful to the team that I've learned. I learned yoga in a more formal setting, in a very structured formal setting. I learned a lot more about the practice of yoga asana and breathing techniques, pranayama. So then I discovered by chance a different style of yoga, which was a lot more slower, and it was a lot more, I would say, to a point. I'm going to use the word meditative, but it's not the right word. I can't get to the right word, but it was a lot more focused. And it was more of a static style of yoga. So it's more of a new style of yoga. It was probably only been around for a few decades, but it also goes back to the older styles of yoga, asana, but it takes it down, slows it down even more. So I quite enjoy yin yoga. And what I used to do is I used to listen to philosophy, because for those of you that don't know, yin yoga is essentially you're moving from one pose to another, and you're holding the pose and breathing through the pose, and then once you've completed X time, you will move to the next pose, and that's essentially what it is. Now, because there's certain asanas that you can't hold for very long, it's only limited to specific types of poses. And I still remember when I started off, I was screaming, my body was screaming, "What are you doing?" And also to still the mind was very challenging. But I got accustomed to it, and I found it quite useful. And I practiced it for well over a year religiously. And during that time, I was listening to different podcasts on philosophy and various on various topics. It was mostly philosophical topics. I'm not a religious person. By no means was I a spiritual person that has not significantly changed a lot over the past, I would say, 12 months. And then I was listening, I came across this teacher. Well, he wouldn't want to be called a teacher, but I will call him a teacher because he had really some profound things to say. And I was listening to his talks, his dialogues, because he had dialogues with various prominent individuals and not so prominent individuals, but doesn't matter. We're all human beings. So whether you are well known and prominent and more experienced in specific or well known, or maybe a celebrity, doesn't really matter to me. But he engaged people from all walks of life. And he had a very interesting story, but I'll probably talk about him in another video. But his talks the topics were of a nature that I wasn't accustomed to, and it was a bit of a struggle for me, for my mind to wrap itself around the concepts that he was trying to explain. And being in mind, when I do talk about him in the future, he's by no means the way he explains it is easy to understand. So you have to listen to it over and over and over. Sometimes we listen to the same videos multiple times just to understand. Did I miss something? Did I understand him? Or what does he mean by that? Or what does that concept mean? And etc. And then one day I listened to a talk between him and a Buddhist monk. So he's had conversations with priests and Buddhist monks, and even Islamic scholars, scientists, various individuals from various beliefs and organizations. And then when they were having the conversation, I started to realize that they were saying some really similar things, and I found that quite interesting. And that's when I decided to look a bit more into the views of the other person that he was talking to, and that took me down a bit of a rabbit hole. And that's when I got to the topic of meditation. Now I've steered clear of meditation because I have a noisy mind, and to still the mind is very challenging. But that's where Yin Yoga has helped me. Yin, I think, was a good foundation for me to help to quieten the mind a bit more, slowly but surely quieten the mind. And as I was quieting the mind, I started to discover that through the quieting of the mind, I could deal better with the pain. So even though I had surgery, it wasn't really the solution I was hoping for. It didn't solve the problem in its entirety. Even though some of the pain was reduced, maybe not minimized, reduced, I was still experiencing pain. So just a side, maybe a side, go off track, and I usually do go off track, so I'm speaking very casually here. So I will go off track. There was a period of time after the surgery and while I was in rehabilitation that I went back to seek alternative medical treatments, even to the point where I went back into medication and I just had not had a good experience. And then I tried also alternative treatments, and other than yoga and that was that wasn't really as effective as I was hoping it would be. But it was a journey, and I essentially it was a process of trial and error where I managed to identify what worked and what didn't work. And I narrowed it down and narrowed it down and narrowed it down. And I thought, okay, wow, okay, after doing this for so many years, these are the things that have been effective and these are the things that have not been effective. So what I've discovered was what was effective in managing my pain. The practice of yoga. And I'll come back to yoga because I wasn't practicing yoga fully. Massage was really helping in specific areas of my body that was tensing up. It was because of the pain, so it was a vicious cycle. Because of the pain, my body was reacting, so it was tensing up. My muscles were tensing up, and with the tense up, obviously I was doing muscular pain as well. So it was it caused other problems as well, and the yin practices, well, yin style yogic practice really helped. Sorry, I'm looking down because there's people on the side here. And yeah, and I narrowed it down. So, and then also some medications actually was a bit more tolerable. And I decided to narrow down all the medication to only those three types of medication that really helped me. And that's where I am today. So I decided to maybe try that and see where it takes me. Then in June of last year, one Friday evening, well, it was a Thursday that I drove past a meditation center that's close to where I stay. And I saw the big board and I thought, okay, oh, there's a meditation center here. I've always wanted to try it out. Now that I've done all this practice and I've got to a point where I was able to stall the mind a bit. I still had a bit of some noise, but it was a lot better than what it was in the past. Then I decided to go, went online to see when they open, and I went the next day, the Friday. I just arrived there. Didn't contact them, nothing. And I arrived there, and I sat in the corner of the meditation hall, and I was the only person there. I still remember I arrived there with a blanket and a meditation cushion. I didn't actually need it because they had everything there. And I sat there and I observed what was happening. There were 3 monks in front, and I quite liked the fact that they weren't pushing a religion. They were really focusing on the practice of meditation. And that's where I sat there and I meditated, listened an hour, and I discovered, how that practice is really not easy. But I needed to understand it a bit more. So as what I do, I decided to understand, to read, to understand what meditation really is and what the benefits are, where it originated, what the story is behind meditation, etc. Because all hear about meditation, but do we really know what meditation really is? And then on the last day of my Thai yoga training, the teacher told me to go and see this museum in this part of Thailand. Never heard of it. I've asked a few Thai people. Some have heard of it, some have never heard of it. But it's the most amazing place. and it's a museum made entirely of wood, and it's called the Museum of the Sacred Truth. And yeah, I think that's what it's called. Wait, let me double check. Um, yes. No, it's called the Sanctuary of the Truth Museum. I got this so wrong. Well, in terms of the name, but sort of right, also at the same time. Beautiful place. So I'm going to, as I'm talking, I'm going to overlay this with some videos of this museum that I've taken, and it's the most fascinating place that I've ever seen. So, like as I said, this entire museum is constructed entirely of wood. Everything is made of wood. It's built on a rock, and the structure, even to the lift for disabled individuals, is made of wood. And you go on a guided tour, and then the tour guide explains everything about the origins of the museum and obviously and how it's maintained. And every single piece in this museum is made entirely by hand, and that I found the most fascinating aspect of this museum. But what I didn't know was that the museum is actually a story. So the museum is a story of life, of birth and life and death as we know it. And it tells various stories from different. It's not. It's not focused on one specific religion. It incorporates aspects of various religions within this museum, and different interpretations of what constitutes life, structures of society, family, relationships, various types of religions, belief systems, different stories, mythological stories. It's all engraved into various parts of the museum. And it was really, really amazing. So anyway, we went on this tour, and I think I told a few people after the tour, we gave our reviews and a tip, and then you were allowed to take pictures. And I went around, and I remember this specific part of that museum that I wanted to go back to do, just have a look at it again and take some photos of it. And so I spent some time taking photos, just looking at them in amazement at this museum. And when I looked around, there was probably about 100 people in the group. Because we were no 50 people, probably I'm exaggerating, 50 people in this group. So it was each, so there were specific groups that you were put in. And then as I turned around, everybody was gone. All the tourists, I was also a tourist, but all the other tourists were gone. It was just me and I think another person that was taking some more photos. And the rest of the people there were staff. And at that moment, I decided, I need to understand this, the practices of the East a bit more in depth, and also explore the practice of meditation. So, what is meditation? So, when we think of meditation, we think of meditation as the image that comes to our mind is just sitting down in a cross-legged position, maybe on a cushion, keeping our eyes closed, and doing a what. So I just couldn't quite understand, is there something you're supposed to achieve? Are you working towards it? What are you supposed to be doing in meditation? You're just supposed to close your eyes and think of something. What is this practice of meditation? So you get different kinds of meditation, but so a bit of an education, and just from my own learning. By no means am I an expert. I'm learning, and I'm learning about thousands and thousands of years of practice and philosophies, and so I don't think that I'll ever learn everything about this practice in my own lifetime. But so this is an ongoing journey that probably will take me right until the end of my life. And it's also changed, as I've dug deep into this, it's changed the way I view the world, the way I view human relationships, the way I view the I, the ego, the me, and I've essentially changed many views about what I believe was true that wasn't actually really true. So I've changed my mind, and I think we're all entitled to change our minds. Maybe I'll take different views on, or take on different views in the future. I don't know where this journey will take me, but I can only speak for where I'm at now.